you seek. Sail home, sweet home, where the ships must go to get all cleaned up and put away.
All right. Hello, everybody.
Hi.
Thank you for waiting. We had some technical difficulties, but we're live. We're good. Hello, Miss Myra. And some of you may know, I also refer to you privately as Mom.
Yeah. Hello,
Um,
nice to you. I don't see you enough.
I know. Sorry. You may want to move the mic a little bit closer to you or you a little bit closer to the mic.
Okay, let me see if I can. How is that?
Sounds great.
Okay.
Sounds great. And everybody in the comments will let us know as well. Like always, if we are a little laggy or unclear or you can't hear us very well, please drop a comment and let us know. But today, we've got a great topic. And we have yours truly here, the Miss Myra Galt. There we go. Wanted to make you bigger. I think it's been a while since you've been on Facebook, right? It's been some time?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right,
That's-
great. Why don't you share
But,
with the people how the heck you are?
well, I am no longer going into administrative hearings, which has been a blessing. So God has blessed us with a guy named Lewis who actually came from from a county, and he wanted to take over that responsibility, and it's amazing. So I'm not, so the idea is that I'm going to semi-retire, but I'm still here every day, 4 to 8 hours, doing other things, but that burden has been taken off my shoulders. So my goal is to spend more time with my grandkids. That includes your daughter.
Love it.
So I'd like to spend more time with them. But today, I said, with retiring, I can go on Facebook Live more. And they go, oh, no, you're supposed to retire. Okay. So here I am.
Not allowed. Not allowed.
Mm.
They need you here. Facebook needs you. No,
So here I am.
glad you get to carve out this Friday with everybody. And I'm glad it works out where I get to join you. I know everybody has gotten to know Dakota and Nicole and the other Myra really well, right? As you know, this year has gone on, but I'm glad we get to connect. So we'll jump into today's topic. We don't have any comments just yet, but feel free, everybody who's watching, to give the stream a like, a love, share it, tag a support group. You guys do that every single week, and it's awesome. It brings in just more people who need to hear this information, and we don't get to talk about school that often. I know every week, we get comments about school, and Dakota and I do our best. I know we are not education advocates such as yourself, but we know enough to be dangerous. But no, it's great to have Myra Galt herself, who's kind of a legend, if you will, in the IEP space, right? You've been, to my understanding, I'd say a kind of a pivotal important, pioneer in the industry when it comes to advocating for special education and IEP support. So much so that you've almost kind of changed the game as far as how people advocate in this space. You may not speak so highly of yourself in that way, but I will. Considering all the advocates that we talk to across California who do this work. And so I'm sure there's a lot of people here who are very excited to maybe get some of the cool tidbit notes from you. Today's topic is about going back to school and getting ready for those IEP meetings. And so we do have kind of some notes here, some bullet points that we're going to go over. But where would you like to start? If you're a mom watching right now, and we're getting ready for school. Maybe it'll be their first year their child's in school. Maybe it's the first year they have an IEP, or maybe they've had chatter that an IEP is on the horizon and they don't know what to expect. Where would you like to begin?
Yeah. Well, I think the first thing I want to talk about is how to start the school year out and have a really good plan so this year goes well. The first thing I know, some parents are going to be their children are starting in a new school district, or maybe they are moving from elementary to middle school. And so first thing I'd like to just talk about is how do we prepare the child for this new environment? Now, the school districts are not going to be overly thrilled about some of the things I'm going to talk about, but it is your legal right. from what I understand from the regulations. So let's say your child's going to start on a new campus. I suggest you go with your child and you ask at the front desk if you could walk your child through the different environments, the cafeteria, the library, the recess areas. So your child has you walking with them through those environments, not just showing up in a classroom with a bunch of new students. You have the right to do that. Um, Always check in at the front desk. That's the first thing I want to say is your child needs to get to know their new campus, and you would be the best person to give them a tour. Obviously, you may have someone on the staff with you. They don't often let parents just wander around the campus. Um, and then let's talk about that first IEP. Now, some of you had your IEP back in the spring, and so you're not scheduled for another IEP until spring, but you can ask for an IEP anytime. So let's talk about moving forward with your IEPs. What are some really important things that you need to think about this year? Okay. The first thing I want to encourage you is to always, always record your IEP meeting. Now, the rules around that are very clear. You need to contact the school district 24 hours, at least 24 hours before your IEP, and let them know you're going to have your phone there and you're going to record. The next thing is bring someone with you. The IEP meeting are people that come together to discuss your child and their needs. You know your child better than anyone on that campus. So you are an important part of that team. And often parents feel ganged up on. Lots of school people, and then there's just you. Bring a friend or a couple of friends with you, and just ask them to bring a notepad. They won't need to butt in but they can take notes to help you. And then another important piece of information: do not sign the IEP while you're there, no matter what pressure they put on you. The IEP is a legal binding contract between the school district and you for your child who is their student. So you really need to go home and read it over. So don't let them pressure you into signing. Even here in our office, when someone really wants our help, we don't pressure them. Even though we say, yes, we'll take your case, we don't pressure them. We want people to know what they're getting into. And that's what you have to do with your IEP. The next thing,
Before
yeah,
before you move on, we do have a question.
okay.
Since we don't have too many questions just yet, we can get ahead of it. So
Okay.
Terry says my son had a safety evaluation by the school psychologist, and she agreed that he needs a 1-to-1 as he is a flight risk. This was approved last September, so we're going on almost a whole year. They never added his 1-to-1. The teacher indicated she's not aware of a reason why they haven't hired a provider for him. What do you recommend? Should I request request an urgent IEP discussion?
Yes. Yes, you should. And that's such a good question because you're not alone. Ooh, this stuff happens a lot. And so what you need to know is the school was out of compliance for the whole school year. If this was ordered last year and he never got it. So what that means is you need to have an IEP as soon as school starts. Get that. I mean, you can call now and get that going. Tell them it's an emergency. They shouldn't shuffle their feet and take too much time. If they give you too much trouble, you can call us. We can put you in touch with an attorney that can help you. These attorneys don't take any money from you, so you don't have to worry. They make the school district do what they're supposed to do, and then the school district has to pay their fees. So what I recommend is you go to this IEP, bring a couple of witnesses with you with their notebooks, record the IEP, and tell them last year my child did not get a 1-to-1. So, and clearly state your understanding is that the school district is out of compliance with the IEP, which is a contract, and that you are going to pursue legal support if they don't have a 1-to-1 in place right away this year. As far as damages from the last year, you can fight that. And I won't go into all of that on this Facebook Live, time, but there are ways to deal with that. The school now owes your child compensation. So you're welcome to call us at your convenience, and we can share some more information with you about that.
Love it. Thank you. All right. So Terry, thank you for the question. We do have another question, and then I think we can hop back into your bullets. Cassie, do the IEPs work differently if you're going if you're going to homeschool your child? This is my daughter's first year in school, and I've decided to homeschool her.
Well, your IEP, if you're going to homeschool under the umbrella of, let's say, a Christian school or a church that you're part of, and they have an umbrella. I have actually an affidavit, so people can homeschool under my affidavit. If you're doing that, you're not going to get school support. Now, if you're going to homeschool with the school's independent study program, that's a different story. But truly, the benefit of the very first IEP is where they did all the assessments on your child. You know, a psychological assessment, speech and language, OT, and all that. So you have all that data and that information. If you're going to homeschool, it helps you know how to homeschool your child better. But to get services, your child's going to need to be part of the school district.
That's interesting. So with that, so I know that I've talked with a lot of families who have asked about homeschooling versus being physically in school, or doing kind of like those private charter, or you know, somewhere, not private but public charters, right? So obviously the IEP is still utilized whether the child is in home or physically on campus. But you're saying that if they're at home, they can't receive like OT or speech or other type of
Well, they
therapeutic
can if
intervention?
well, no, they can if they are. So there's a lot of programs through the school district that your child can be educated at home. Home and hospital, independent study. There are charter schools that are public schools where, like Pathways Charter School, which is local to us here. And you know about that because you went there, right?
For
No.
like a year.
Yeah, I'm thinking, which of my kids went there? And so that's a public school charter school. So the kids only go 2 days a week, but then the 3 days a week they're at home. Now, public charter schools, independent study through the school district, home and hospital are all programs where the child is at home majority of the time, and they can utilize their IEP goals, and they can work on all of the things that are in the IEP. But if they're, for example, in a homeschool under a church program, for example, no, they're not going to be able to use their services.
Got it. Understood. Thank you. All right, back to your points.
So my next bullet point of encouragement to families today about starting this school year, let's make sure in your IEP, if you don't already have it, set up an IEP meeting, even just for this one thing. You want a log, a communication log going back and forth from the school and home every day. Now, parents go, oh, I asked for that and nobody did it or whatever. It has to be written in your IEP. So if the IEP says that the teacher must write a note every day and send it home in that notebook, it needs to happen. So what is the purpose of this notebook? Let me give you some good reasons why you want this notebook. First of all, if your child's getting speech therapy, OT therapy, that sort of thing, you want to know when they get it and if they got it. You want to know if the speech therapist was sick that week. And you need to keep track of that, because at the end of the school year, if your speech and language therapist was missing for a whole bunch of therapeutic moments, those are all areas where the school will owe your child compensation. You also want to know about behaviors. You want to know how they're dealing with the behaviors, because you can easily say to them at the IEP, I know that what my child does here at school and at home is not always the same, but if you're dealing with some of my behaviors that I'm dealing with at home, I want to know how you deal with it. I want to hear how it went. Sometimes with my kiddos, the notebook would just say, Stephen had a great day, nothing to report. Well, that's okay sometimes, but I wouldn't want that every single day, because that doesn't tell me anything. So what I wanted to see is, Stephen had speech therapy today. It went really well. The therapist was with him for 20 minutes. Stephen had occupational therapist today and it went really well, or it didn't go well. He threw everything at the therapist. You want to know these things. So you want to get a log going. Now, on your end, there's no responsibility for you to write anything, but I did. So in the morning, as I was getting, for example, Stephen's backpack ready, I would take his notebook and I would write, Stephen's having a great morning, no meltdowns. He seems happy. He ate a good breakfast. Or I might have to write, really difficult morning. Good luck today. So I would always write something. So I think getting the log going back and forth is a really important thing to consider. And I encourage you all to do that. Another thing you might, yeah.
Yeah, so on that point, the log too, coming from the perspective of something like IHSS, right? So the log is much, I'd say, grander than just making sure that the school is following what they should be following or doing what they should be doing or monitoring certain behaviors that they should be monitoring, right? But it also is a way for the school to truly get to know your child, right? When we take a class ourselves, or if we're trying to learn a new subject on something or a topic, we may take notes, right? That's how we're all taught in school, right? If we're preparing for an essay, listen in the lectures, listen in your class, take notes, study, right? This is kind of an opportunity for the school to do the same. And that child may have a revolving door of different teachers. And so if there's a history of notes for them to refer to and for them to continuously write their own notes, even if it's just aides in the class that are doing it, it can really help build that relationship with them and this student that you wish that they can have rather than just guessing all year and year after year after year, right? It can help with aligning those goals that I'm sure Myra's going to talk about here shortly, right? But on the IHSS note, we do have a comment here from Danielle. She said that her child was recently denied protective supervision, and Danielle, I'm sure one of our folks from the office will be in contact with you shortly. So hang tight. But she doesn't need any more supervision than a typical 4.5-year-old child, right? So naturally, a child this age, this young, there may not be a whole lot of notes from the school. They may not even be in school. We don't know, right? But having those logs from school can really help bridge that gap too, to show like, hey, this child's in a special education, special day class setting. They are doing things and behaviors that are not typical of a child of this age. So hopefully it can help with getting these types of denials too, right, for IHSS. So the log can be much deeper than just making sure that some of these things are noted for the purpose of the IEP. But anyways, I'll go ahead and back out and give it back to you, Myra.
And to that mom, being denied protective supervision, if you're not our client, we're not surprised. Parents are being denied right and left, and we're getting lots and lots of phone calls. And often they will say, your child doesn't need more supervision than another child age 4, which we can prove is not usually accurate. So I don't know if that mom is already a client or not, but she can call us and we can give her the lowdown on whether or not her child is actually eligible, and if so, should she fight it? But my next point is get organized this year. Okay, now some of you moms and dads are already there. You have your binder, or you have your little carry-along file cabinet, or you do it all online, but you're organized. Well, then there's a lot of moms and dads out there that are overwhelmed and exhausted, and they're not organized. So this is the year to get organized. I recommend that if nothing else, you get a box. One of those boxes at Home Depot that's for files, something even as cheap as that. And you're going to start putting in there files that are of all your IEPs, your educational assessments, speech and language, occupational therapy, psychoeducational, and you're going to start keeping these documents all together. Okay, why would you do that? Well, first of all, for IHSS, we need a lot of those documents when we help you with that benefit, but it also helps you to be able to know whether or not your child met their goals, because you're going to have it all in one place where you can review it. So I think that you can do something like binders. You can do, I've seen parents put it in a binder with some, what do you call those? File tabs for different categories. You can put it in a box. You can put it, whatever. I just recommend this be the year you get organized. It helps a lot.
It,
And
it also it also sets the tone in these meetings because
mhm,
so I'm sure there's a lot of parents watching who have felt maybe like they were pushed around a little bit, or maybe they were maybe even belittled in some of these meetings simply because they may not have a real understanding of special education rules, regulations, laws, right? So I know it's kind of, elementary, if you will, pun intended, but having that organization, just having a notebook with you ready to take notes, and having the people, your posse with you, like you mentioned, right? Your group with you, it can kind of set the tone and say, hey, like, we're not just gonna let you decide what's best for the child, this child, my child. We're gonna collaborate together according to, what we have here. So, yeah. Anyways,
that's so true. And you are the professional with your child. Now, you may have to wear sweats all day and be sweaty because you're chasing them around, but you're still the professional. You know, you're the professional that knows your child. So that's the next thing I want you to do is I want you to put together a document that talks about who your child is. And I want you to have that ready at every IEP meeting. So it's going to say a document that says all about me. Okay. I love French fries. So this child, so that your teacher, your aides, whoever's working with your child will know, like that notebook that goes back and forth, that will be passed on to the next school year. But your child's new teacher or aides, they switch out. Even if it's the same teacher they had last year, you may get different aides this year. You're going to have a note, you're going to have something that tells them all about your child because you're the specialist. What time do they go to bed? What time do they get up? What kind of nights do they have? Do they get up and wander in the night? So they might be kind of tired in the morning. You want to put some triggers down, things that would cause your child to have trouble. You know, um, the schools do this a lot, and so does IHSS. They always make a big deal. The child behaves this negative way because they didn't get what they wanted. Well, that's fine, but they also behave that way for reasons you don't know. So you might want to say to the school district, I don't know why, but he does this and this and this. And here's how I deal with it at home. You want to put in there what his medical needs are. Um, on the IEP, sometimes you have some of this information, but you need to every year create a this is me document all about your child, what their favorite foods are, what triggers they have, what their medical needs are, and what motivates them. So, like my son Steven, Skittles motivated him. So when he was in the program that he was in, they would take Skittles and chop them up into little tiny pieces, and every time Stephen was successful, he would get a tiny piece of a Skittle. If that's something that your child would be motivated to work toward, let the school know. Another thing you want to do is have a file in your box or your binder of communications between you and the school teacher. A lot of times today, we talk to school teachers and personnel via emails. Print those out, put them in your binder, okay? Because that could be very important if you ever have to challenge the school on anything. Do we have any other questions yet?
No questions, but Cassie earlier said thank you. She was the one speaking about homeschooling. And then we actually have another homeschool question from Nessa. Would love to hear about IEP's homeschool edition through public charters one day. Yeah, I mean, I think Myra, you briefly touched on it a little bit, but we definitely can maybe track that up. Are there any other last, charter school notes that you want to share while Nessa is still here?
Well, the charter schools, if they're the public charter schools, they're supposed to honor your IEP. However, I do know there are some that won't or don't want to. Is that something you can press? Yeah. And like I said, if people have real issues with their IEP, we can connect you with a really good attorney. Actually, I just connected with an attorney out of Southern Cal yesterday, and he is ready and waiting to take any of our families that need that kind of help. So he works all over the state. But truly, many of those charter schools that are publicly run, like Pathways locally here, are excellent places for your child to be educated. You just want to make sure they're willing to work with your IEP.
Love it.
Yeah. Another thing that parents might want to make sure is put into the IEP, certain supports that you use at home. Or if you find out they use them at school, you should start using them at home. And that would be like visual charts. Or I know for my daughter, Emily, we had a visual chart. Do you remember what it was, Caleb? It was in the kitchen.
Good choice. Bad choice. Think about it. What are you going to do?
Going to do. And they use that at school, so we use that at home. So it goes the other way too. If you have a really neat tool you're using at home, like a chart of some sort, share that with the school district. For
And
Emily,
I was saying, don't expect it to be perfect, everybody. I'm sure. I know we have lots of stories about generalizing certain things at school versus home that involves Stephen and Emily, both who are profoundly disabled, right? But on a fun note, speaking about the good choice, bad choice, that is something we still laugh about to this day as siblings, because it was just it was really funny seeing that come home and be propped up on the refrigerator where it's just photos of Emily going, a picture like this that says good choice, and then the next one bad choice, and then think about it, what are you going to do? And then whenever we would try and put it into practice with Emily, what would she say?
I can't remember.
She would say, if we said, Emily, what are you doing right now? Right? Maybe she's grabbing an extra cheese stick out of the fridge and she's already had 3, right? Say, Emily, is this a good choice or a bad choice? Think about it, right? And she'd say, bad choice, bad choice. And that's all we'd get.
She understood what it meant, but that didn't mean she put the cheese back. Okay.
Product of ODD as well. So those who have ODD in their home should know.
And Down syndrome. One thing they all have in common is stubbornness. They're all stubborn. They can be cute as heck, but they're stubborn. So one of the other things that I want to encourage parents to do, but it's not easy for them to do, and that is get tapped in on different sites where you can get support before you go to your IEP meeting every year. So one of the sites would be, and maybe we can have our staff put this up for you, Rights Law. Pete Wright and his wife are attorneys, and I went through their training to be an educational advocate. They do have trainings you can go to. They have a website that is overwhelming to my eyes and brain, so I may have, ADD or something myself. But anyway, their website is amazing with full information on every topic you can think of. And then another site that I think all parents with children who have challenges need to have on their browser is Disability Rights of California. If you go to that website, they have a section on not pamphlets. Boy, I'm showing my age. They have support help for every topic you can think of, including special education. They even have an advocacy publication that you can download and have with you at your IEP meeting, giving you lots of ideas about how to come to your IEP and what to bring up. A lot of what I've shared with you, they have put into that publication. So I encourage parents this year be the year to get organized. Make sure your child is comfortable on the campus. If you find, what if you find your child is not comfortable this year on this campus? Give it 30 days. At 30 days, you can ask for a 30-day review, or you can plan for that. You can plan a 30-day review if they're in a new campus. And if it's not working well for them after 30 days, it's something the school district should consider working with you on to make changes. I don't have much more to share today. I hope that these tidbits of information help parents as they begin starting the new school year.
Thank you. I have a couple of things I want to go over real quick before we let you run. So on that note of what you just shared, so we just posted some of those links to those websites in the comment section for everybody to actually check out. So Wright's Law, like Myra said, it is a little bit law jargon-ish. So it can be a tough read, but thankfully with AI these days, ChatGPT and Claude, if you have trouble, you can always copy and paste some of those items into those AIs saying, hey, can you simplify this for me? I am a parent, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not an advocate. I just want to have a better understanding of this. Something that I have always encouraged young parents specifically, and Myra, please feel free to share your feedback on this if you agree or disagree. But, when people call the office and they want kind of a full intake, they want to have a better understanding of IHSS, regional center, maybe they're a young parent and they're just learning about a lot of these things. Um, what I typically like to say is that these different environments are so complex. There's so many different elements and procedures and rules. They're all different. None of them, they can technically all work together, but they're all different things. And so you know, to have to burden yourself as the expert in all these different things for the best interest of your child, what we typically like to recommend, or at least what I like to recommend, is we can't control the outcomes of IHSS. We can't control the outcomes of how regional center wants to allocate funds per regional center. The rules are all the same, but every regional center operates a little differently, right? We can't control what type of hometown you live in, what resources are available. Some areas like the city of San Diego or the city of San Francisco, they may have a lot more therapeutic interventions than somewhere in the middle of the state like Modesto or Fresno, right? So those are some things that are out of our control. But one thing you can be at least some form of tangible control is having an understanding of your child's IEP, right? So a lot of times I'll ask a parent, like, have you actually read your IEP, like cover to cover? Maybe they've had it for a couple of years now, but you're asking like, why isn't the school doing this, or how come the school talked about offering this, but they're not doing it? And I will say, well, is it in the IEP? Have you read? Do you know your IEP cover to cover? 9 times out of 10, a parent's going to say, well, I mean, sort of. I don't have it memorized, and I think I know it pretty well, right? I would encourage and challenge a parent. Don't put your focus and time and energy into things like regional center, IHSS. Those are great things. You can partner with an advocate on those things who already are specialized in it. But for you, the very least that you can do, which would set you miles ahead, maybe the average person, is doing some of the basic research of how an IEP meeting is supposed to go. Watching these live streams or watching a lot of the free educational videos on YouTube, right? Getting familiar with maybe some of the rules and regulations nationwide with IEP support and special education. It's federally mandated, so it should be the same, right? But knowing your IEP, reading it cover to cover as often as you can, just being super familiar with it, more so than maybe the school is, will give you a bit of that like empowerment of knowing, hey, if the school's doing something wrong, I don't have to guess. The proof is right here, and I know it because I just read it, right? They're telling me that this goal is being met, but we just had the meeting and it said that it wasn't, right?
That's
And
another issue right there. Parents don't realize that goals must be met. So, and parents need to know what the psychoeducational evaluation report says. For example, I'll ask parents, what's your child's IQ? They have no idea. It's always in the psychoeducational evaluation if that report has been done the right way. And parents are allowed to ask for an independent evaluation, an IEE, an independent educational.
so so these things right here that Myra you're sharing, these are some of the basic fundamental things that every parent should know. You don't need to be an expert. Those of you who are watching, you don't need to be an expert in every law and regulation when it comes to any of these programs, but having an understanding of what you have the right to ask for with school. The IEP is everything until this child is 22 years old, right?
Right.
So knowing you can ask for an IEP meeting at any time. You can label it an emergency meeting if it's necessary, right? If they
Yes.
agree to something verbally in the meeting and you receive that draft IEP and it's not in there, you can refer back to that. You can bring that up as an issue, right? When something is supposed to be implemented, how long can you give the school grace before they actually implement it? Like September, they were granted a 101 in September and they still haven't implemented it yet, right? What is the time frame? How should a parent even know that, right? These are some of the basic things. Since we're on that topic, what is the time frame? If you're in an IEP meeting, maybe it's written, you get the draft and it says little Johnny's getting his 1-to-1. How long does the school have before they actually have to make that right?
The minute that parent signs the IEP, the school district has to make it happen immediately. There is no waiting around. The fact they can't find someone is not a legal reason. So this family does have a real issue that they can deal with, but moving forward, they need to go to the IEP and say, and I want a 1-to-1 right now, or I'm calling a lawyer. So, you know, they don't want you to call a lawyer. They don't want you to take them to due process, but they also, the school districts also don't want to get in front of a judge when it's something they know they're wrong about. So they'll work with you a lot quicker. But yeah, there's so many things parents don't know. You're right, Caleb. You can get an advocate for some of these other benefit programs, but with an IEP, it's much harder because some attorneys only want certain types of cases. We help families, but we have to charge them a fee. And I've always hated that. So that's why I do these sorts of events where I'm trying to help parents learn on their own so they don't have to hire someone. But truly, if you need an attorney, like the situation with the last year, no 1-to-1, that is a serious situation. And we can connect you with the proper attorney for those sorts of things.
Yeah, and typically what we do as an office is if you have a challenge like that, like Myra said, we want to look at everything and provide as much information as we can so that you don't have to actually hire an advocate. That goes for anything, whether it be for IHSS, a regional center, right?
Oh,
It's
yeah.
only if it's needed. If you've given it all you've got and there's no other route and they're just flat out lying to you or they're flat out taking advantage, there may not be another option. But if we feel like there's
Yeah.
room, things you can do, that will be recommended and suggested before any like formal matters will happen.
Well, even, I'm doing your old job. I'm doing intakes now, intake consults for parents who want to know if their child would be eligible for IHSS and that sort of thing. And I tell every parent, if their child isn't eligible for protective supervision, I still help guide them on what they need to do, but I don't necessarily want to take their case. They don't need someone. So what I do is I tell them what they need to know as a parent, and they can move forward in their own power to get what hours they do need for their child. And that's the way it is. I just feel we need to empower parents. And one area that parents, like you said, if they're going to focus on any benefit, it needs to be education, because that's until they're 22. I had a family I was talking to a couple days ago. Their child is 16 and he's been pushed along in general ed, even though they have all this evidence that the school district has written up about him eloping and so on. He's still being pushed along to get out on a diploma. He is 16, reading at a second or third grade level. He is nowhere a diploma earning student. But the school districts, for example, want to push them through the diploma so they don't have to pay for the extra 4 years. But a certificate of completion allows the student to go 4 more years after the high school level. They go 4 more years to work on basic skills, basic academics if they need to, or even job training for those that are a little more higher functioning. So there's so many things. I think the one area a parent needs to become an expert to the best of their ability is special education.
I agree. Miss Myra, are you joining Miss Myra G or Nicole at 1 o'clock? You are. Okay. Well, then we will go ahead. We'll go ahead and give you a 5-10 minute break so that you can hit the loo if it's necessary or a gulp of water. But everybody, thank you so much for joining. Thank you for being available today to listen to us talk. And hopefully what we said, or what Myra said rather, kind of struck a chord with some of you. I know we have a lot of like IEP veteran parents that watch the streams. And so if you want, I know a lot of it was kind of some of the basic stuff today, and so hopefully you can touch some of the newer parents. But if you need a little bit more of a deeper dive, call the office, get on someone's calendar. We'd be happy to tackle whatever challenge you may be going through and help you get through it together. But with that said, thanks everybody. I hope you all have a wonderful Friday. If you speak Spanish, watch Nicole and Myra at 1:00 in the next 8 minutes. It'll be some of the same information, but in Spanish. And so if you have friends or family that might want to join that, please share the streams, tag them, send this to support groups like you always do. Give this stream and Nicole's stream a like and a love. That goes a long ways. But again, thank you everybody. I hope you all have a wonderful Friday, and we'll see you next time.
All right. Bye-bye, everyone.